SciManDan, the deceiver from down under. I have been debunking Deceiver Dan for years. He makes his living lying to gullible lazy globe faith believers. And that about says it all when it comes to Deceiver Dan. Well, there is one more thing about Dan. Dan knows his followers are fully programmed, they're gullible and they are lazy. Just the kind of people Dan likes because it means he can tell them anything knowing they will never try to prove what he says. And these fools even give Dan their money. Let's see how long before Danni starts bullshitting.
One of my favourite things to look at for these sorts of videos are the flat earthers' observations. They always, and I mean always, think they have found some sort of gotcha. And they are always, and I mean always, embarrassingly wrong.
SciManDan is not debunking my video, his tactic is to feed his followers lies they will never try to verify. Like I said, SciManDan is not honest, he makes his living lying to gullible globe believers too lazy to research on their own. The point on the right is only 60 feet high. It debunks SciManDan, as Earth curvature predictions say 88 feet of predicted globe Earth curvature is blocking it 100%. Here is the video clip Deceiver SciManDan cherry-picked from my channel. Of course his goal is always to discredit flat Earth observations, which would discredit me. Part of the deception is to deceive his 500,000 gullible followers, so he can make more money from these fools. Note that these gullible followers never debunk flat Earth. They can't even prove the globe for their empty channels. It doesn't matter that SciManDan continually lies to them. Because they never do their own research, so they believe flat Earth truthers are stupid, without ever personally proving the globe or debunking a flat Earth video. This video, even with refraction, easily disproves any measurable curvature to our lot. Yes, SciManDan has deceived his followers yet again. SciManDan, like most deceivers, leave out details that would show them as liars. Here SciManDan neglects to mention the fact the island is mirroring at the base. Let me mark that for you. Notice the mirroring matches with the mirroring on the mainland another 14 miles further than the island. The refraction is far more intense at 38 miles away. However, refraction has nothing to do with alleged Earth curvature, yet SciManDan lies and says it's due to Earth curvature. Now let's look at the height of the drop-off. Is it higher than the expected 88 feet of Earth curvature? The arrow is pointing to the drop-off point. Now let me mark the heights of the point, to show it is well below the 88 feet of predicted curvature. This debunks SciManDan as any kind of truther. He's a paid con man deceiving his gullible followers, too lazy to prove what Dan feeds them, and all too willing to give a liar their money and time. 60 feet is the highest point on the drop-off, 20 feet below the predicted Earth curvature. So, again, I show that SciManDan is dishonest. SciManDan slanders truthers, and he lies to more than 500,000 of his gullible lazy-ass followers, who refuse to do their own research. This is how SciManDan makes his living. Here is what we can see of Nova Scotia's mainland. It's a lot of land. Let me straighten and crop the image to get a closer look. Here is a Google Earth screen capture. It shows where I am standing, and it shows I can see Nova Scotia looking past both ends of the island. The red line on the left shows it is 38.8 miles to the shoreline of Nova Scotia, which is less than 100 feet above sea level. According to Earth curvature calculators, there should be 461 feet of predicted Earth curvature, just to the shoreline less than 100 feet above sea level. This means we need to look further inland to find land 460 feet above sea level. I found 460 feet 42 miles away, where they should be 580 feet, let's find 580 feet of elevation. I had to go to 58 miles, where they should be 1,380 feet of predicted curvature. News flash, there is no land on this entire line of sight that is 1,380 feet high. When trying find elevation to match Earth curvature calculator predictions, it never matches. Well, unless you're SciManDan and use refraction as curvature. Again, SciManDan lies to his followers, and then tries to discredit truthers by lying about them. Okay, that was SciManDan feeding lies to his gullible lazy followers to make more money off these fools. I easily debunked Danni's lies. And remember, this was on a day with lots of refraction, and I still prove Danni is lying to his more than 500,000 followers. Danni used my video to deceive his lazy followers. Now let me show you the same observation, from a different day. A day where there was little to no refraction. That was SciManDan using one of my videos, that had lots of refraction, in order to reinforce the globe programming of his 500,000 gullible believers. Note, SciManDan deceived all those faith believers with trickery. He didn't actually debunk the video, he only had to make his gullible followers believe that he did. The truth is his goal was to try and discredit me as a truther, while deceiving those who watch his videos, so he can make more money. Remember at the start, it only took SciManDan 4 seconds to start bullshitting. Okay, I showed you that SciManDan used one of my refracted videos to fool his 500,000 followers into thinking he had debunked me, as well as flat Earth. I proved SciManDan lies for a living. This video is from the same spot, 104 feet above sea level. The only difference is this day doesn't have the refraction blocking things. There is refraction compressing the view, but it's not stopping us from seeing the points, or the mainland of Nova Scotia. Just off the point on the right, the rocks, which are less than 25 feet high, are visible, debunking the 88 feet of predicted curvature. The highest spot on the right point drop-off is 60 feet above sea level, which debunks the predicted 88 feet of Earth curvature, and it proves SciManDan is deceitful. This shows zero measurable curvature to about 28 miles away, and shows SciManDan as a deceiver of the gullible and lazy. The island debunks SciManDan's bullshit, and I could stop here, but I won't, because I have lots of proofs that debunk Danni, and shows he lies to his gullible followers for money. The entire island is visible top to bottom. There is zero measurable curvature. And it shows SciManDan lies to his followers on a daily basis. Remember, SciManDan lied when he said my refracted video was curvature, and this video proves that Danni lies to his gullible followers. The mainland is another 14 miles further than the island. Just to the shoreline at Margarettsville, Nova Scotia, looking past the island, is 38 miles. 38 miles looking from 104 feet above sea level, should have a predicted curvature of 434 feet. However, the land is less than 100 feet about sea level, at Margarettsville. Earth curvature calculator predictions don't match what we flat Earth researchers show in reality. Here we already have more than 300 feet of missing curvature, which means we have to look further inland for that missing curvature, and that never goes well for the globe believer. I found 340 feet of land at 42 miles away, which now should have 580 feet of predicted Earth curvature. Again, Earth curvature predictions never match reality, and now I have to find 580 feet, which is 50.8 miles, and that demands 978 feet of curvature. There is no land on this line of sight that is 978 feet high, which again debunks the bullshit from SciManDan. Notice that the Nova Scotia mainland is visible and is going off the screen to the right, and that means even more distance, which demands even more of that predicted curvature that never matches reality. Again, SciManDan had to use one of my observation to trick his gullible followers. The fact is, I debunked any curvature in my original video, even with all that refraction, which SciManDan claimed was curvature, and that was with a really refracted video. So this non-refracted video utterly destroys Deceiver Dan. Sadly, we truthers know SciManDan's groupies will never see the truth. They are controlled by their childhood heliocentric programming and are not capable of using critical thinking. So I have added a few more clips that show their hero, SciManDan, is a deceiver, and has been feeding them lies for as long as they have been swallowing him. Here is a video from a different day. I am 28 miles away at Dennis Beach. My camera is 3 feet above sea level. Earth curvature prediction calculators say there should be 446 feet of curvature. What we are seeing is the right point of Alot on Fundy Bay. It is no higher than 250 feet on the right, however, it should be blocked by 446 feet of alleged curvature. And here I have my camera on the sand just 2 inches above sea level. I am showing you that we flat Earth researchers deal with refraction, not only on a daily basis, but minute by minute. There is never any measurable curvature, which SciManDan knows, and why he has to trick his gullible followers. And again, Dan knows his followers will never try to verify the crap he feeds them. Here is a day that refraction is compressing the height of the island. We know it's not mirroring as we can see the rocks to the right of the island, which are no more than 25 feet above sea level. A lot of SciManDan fanboys complained about the mainland appearing lower than the island when the land is double the island's height. The video Dan chose to slander had a lot of refraction mirroring, and hiding the mainland. Of course, Dan never mentioned that. Instead, Dan claimed it was due to Earth curvature, when in fact it was refraction. On this day, there is no mirroring blocking and distorting the island. The only thing making the land of Nova Scotia appear lower is angular size change over the extra 13 miles to the shoreline. These are important things that SciManDan leaves out of his slander videos. Again, SciManDan is a con man, making a living off gullible lazy globe Earth faith believers. Notice the white fishing boat next to the island. Keep your eye on it and watch how fast it vanishes. That's due to angular size change over distance. The further things are away from you, the smaller they appear to be until they are no longer resolvable. The boat is a 14-foot local fishing boat. It has 3 of that 14 feet under the water, leaving only 11 feet visible. There is no measurable curvature between that boat and where I am standing at Dennis Beach parking, with an eye level of 85.5 feet looking 28 miles. I am at Dennis Beach, New Brunswick. My camera is at 85.5 feet looking 28 miles to the 328-foot high L-Oat. There should be 185 feet of predicted Earth curvature blocking the bottom half of the island. Let me point out a couple of things that debunk the predicted curvature. From 85.5 feet above sea level looking 28 miles, there should be 185 feet of alleged curvature. Let me mark that. Now look at the tree tops on the left end of the island. Those trees are where the island begins to increase elevation at the lagoon, where the sandbar is. Those tree tops are about 90 to 100 feet above sea level. Yet 185 feet of predicted curvature cannot hide the trees. On the other end of the island, the drop-off point is 66 feet above sea level. And again, the 185 feet of predicted Earth curvature cannot block a 66-foot high point. These videos are some I have taken over the past 5 to 6 years. My flat Earth observation videos on my channel are not all refracted. So I find it strange that SciManDan had to cherry-pick a refracted video. I guess that was the only way Dan could trick his gullible followers. Here I am at Dennis Beach 28 miles from L-Oat with my camera at 20 inches above sea level. There should be 500 feet of predicted Earth curvature, yet we still see the island. Earth curvature calculators do not reflect reality, as we flat Earth researchers prove Earth has zero measurable curvature. I am standing at the gorge that goes down to Dennis Beach. My eye level is 85.5 foot above sea level. I am looking 28 miles to the 328-foot high L-Oat, which should have 185 feet of predicted Earth curvature. The thing is, the point on the left is about 100, maybe 110 feet above sea level, and it's quite visible. This destroys the claim SciManDan made saying it's curvature blocking things. Again, SciManDan lies to his gullible followers. I am at Point Wolf in Fundy Park, at the Red Arrow. My camera is 20 feet above sea level, looking 20.3 miles to the 328-foot high L-Oat. The Red Arrow is about where my camera was, no more than 20 feet above sea level. Let's look at the curvature prediction made by Earth curvature calculators. Again, my camera is at 20 feet above sea level. The distance is 20.3 miles, with a predicted 145 feet of globe Earth curvature. Notice that 145 feet of curvature isn't blocking the tree tops on the left end of the island, which are no more than 110 feet above sea level. And we still see mainland Nova Scotia another 11.7 miles beyond the island. Notice that we see mainland Nova Scotia 34 miles from my camera. There should be 938 feet of predicted globe Earth curvature, which is higher than any land on this line of sight. Yet again, I prove SciManDan lies to his lazy gullible followers, as there is zero measurable curvature to Nova Scotia. You don't live on a planet in an endless vacuum. Sadly, that was our childhood heliocentric programming we got during our public school years. This is L-Oat, 28 miles away from my camera. Refraction is compressing the island, making it look longer, but it's all there. My camera is on my tripod at 4 feet, making the lens 84 feet. The predicted Earth curvature should be 187 feet. 185 feet of predicted Earth curvature cannot block those treetops at 100 feet above sea level. My eye level is 85.5 feet looking 28 miles to out. Earth curvature calculators predict 185 feet of curvature. We not only see those trees at about 100 feet, but we also see a dark line that is mainland Nova Scotia about 38 miles from my camera. Earth curvature calculators predict 700 feet of Earth curvature just to the shoreline. SciManDan is deceiving his followers who are gullible enough to give Deceiver Dan their money, without once researching to prove what Dan feeds them. Just faith belief in a model they will never prove. This shows SciManDan is definitely not a truther. Like the overly ignorant, Professor Dave explains, and even the dumbass Sean Hawkins. These are evil people making their living lying to gullible fools who are too lazy to prove what these deceivers feed them as truth. Note that these lazy-ass globe faith believers are not very intelligent, they never do their own research, and they give money to those who are lying to them on a daily basis. Sadly, these globe faith believers never take the time to put their best personal globe proofs, or flat earth debunks, on their trolling stations. They are far too triggered as they troll flat earth videos they never get around to debunking. Instead, they show how foolish, gullible, and lazy they are. Again, these trolls are not the most intelligent people.
20 feet above sea level. Should not be able to see the island. But there it is.
Earth curvature calculator predictions to the island, from 28 miles away, with my camera at 20 feet above sea level, is 338 feet, which is higher than the island, yet we see the entire island. I keep saying SciManDan is a con man, and his followers are clueless about reality, and too lazy to do their own research, so they swallow SciManDan's lies continually. People walking the beach here should never see the 328-foot-high out, if they lived on a globe, but they don't, so they see the island anytime it's clear and non-refracted. We can see a little 14-foot fishing boat next to the island. It should have been blocked. My personal horizon, from 104 feet is 12 miles. That boat would have been blocked by the next 12 miles to the island, but there it is. Let's see how long it is visible as I bring the zoom back. The boat should have been blocked by predicted curvature, but isn't. If you are not taking the time to verify what people like SciManDan tell you, you are definitely a faith believer. Now, taking this a step further is the fact you troll flat earth truthers only to babble things you have never personally proven or disproven. Kind of makes you a hypocrite, it shows you are lazy. Although you do seem to have loads of time to troll without critical thinking. And did I mention that these fanboys are extremely gullible? Sadly, that's just how triggered they are by flat earth they can't debunk. I thought it would be appropriate to end with another video that debunks SciManDan's curvature theory, and to do it from the same location I was at in the refracted video SciManDan used to con his gullible followers. So, SciManDan, you told your gullible groupies to remember my description, from the video where you proved flat earth, when you tried to claim refraction was curvature. So, Danni, it turns out, my description was spot on.